Okay, let's talk a little bit though. I mean, we mentioned Ralph this on Saturday with Carson Beck. Like, people were talking on Twitter like he's terrible, he's awful. Look, I think he's in the middle of a nightmare. He's in a nightmare stretch of games. He's completely in his own head. It's not nothing is coming easy to him right now, if that makes sense. So, I think bottom line, like when you look at what Carson Beck is, if he fixes decision making, he's still the pro prospect that people thought he was in the beginning of the year. Like that's still who he is. He has all the measurables. Now, is he surefire number one pick? No. But he's still a first round quarterback. It's the decision making, which is a massive piece to the puzzle that he would need. Clayton asks, is Carson Beck a bottom five quarterback? No. Not even close. Not even close. I mean, I brought this up because a lot of Georgia Tech fans were kind of, just the awareness level of some of these people on social media is wild to me. Some people are talking about Carson Beck just being terrible or whatever. And I was like, y'all, Haynes King had a stretch of 9 interceptions in 5 games last year. Would you have said that he was awful? All I heard is that he was in the same statistical category as Jaden Daniels. That's all I kept hearing, pumping out of the GTAA last year. So it's all relative, obviously, to who you are. I mean, yes, this looks like a massive underperformance, and it is to a certain extent, but Georgia's still winning. I think it speaks to the depth of that team, how good that team is in general, how good the defense is. And Ralph, we talked about it, like they don't have a full stable of running backs. They didn't have this in the Florida game with ETN going down. They literally had a guy that didn't even travel until this week score a touchdown, number 20 for Georgia. I don't even know who the kid was. But
James Phillips, I think.
Dwight Phillips. I have no clue what the kid's name
Dwight
is.
Phillips.
No clue. But I mean, if he fixes it, if he comes out of this funk, like if this upcoming weekend at Ole Miss he throws for 315 and 3 tutties, no picks, everyone's like, okay, like here's the Georgia that's unstoppable. So, Ralph, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it on Saturday. I think you're right. He's in a nightmare stretch of games right now. Not performing to the top tier level of what we thought what he's possible of doing, but he's doing what is necessary to win games, and that's all Kirby cares about right now. You just win and go on to the next one. Forget what happened last week. Forget what happened. I mean, Florida's not bad.
No,
people don't understand. Florida's really not that bad. That's a whole cold take out of this whole entire podcast over here. Is we were wrong on Florida because the fact they're still even like alive at this point with all these injuries and who we thought they'd be this year is impressive enough. Shout out to Florida. Played a great game against Georgia. But I go back to like when Stetson Bennett was there, and Bennett was not playing at the best level of football. They had a great run game at time. They had an amazing defense, so he didn't have to do a lot. But you go back to like 2023 or 2022 when he was there, and you watch him play. He stepped in the big games and made plays to win those games. That reminds me a lot of what Beck was doing this year. Is that in the big games he has to actually show up and play.
Yeah,
Gavin saying mute. I mean, Gavin, you're gonna get muted out of here in a second.
Yeeted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeeted.
No, Ralph, you bring up a good point. Before I go back to Will on this, I tweeted this out, and so people agreed with it. So if people agree with your take, then you're obviously what you're talking about. But it feels like Carson Beck's trying to play outside of himself a little bit. Will, do you feel like that? Because Georgia's, they don't have Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, and that's a big piece to this. Like, they don't have those legit ones. But Dominic Lovett's not bad. Lawson Lucky's not bad. Like, the players they have around him are not bad players. I feel like he's trying to do way too much. Like, he's trying to do stuff he doesn't have to be the guy that throws for 350 and 4 touchdowns. They don't need him to be that. They need him to throw for 250, 275, throw for 2 touchdowns, and just let them, like Kirby Smart. I don't think Kirby Smart cares about flash. Just go win football games and let's see what happens at the end of the year. But you mentioned you've talked to some people about it. Like, do you get that? Do you feel like he's trying to play outside of himself and make plays that aren't necessarily necessary?
Yeah, I think to a degree. I also think that some of the off the field stuff is getting to him. I think it's a combination of all of it. I mean, that's throwing a lot on. Was he 21, 22-year-old? I mean, you give him a Lamborghini, you give him a celebrity girlfriend, and he's still in college. Oh, by the way, you're going to be a first-round draft pick, and you're your team should compete for the national championship. That's a lot. That's a lot to put on anybody at any time. But I think it's a combination. And like you said, it's a nightmare stretch of games. And, could be a bit of a hot take, like you said, if he comes out and throws for 350 against Ole Miss. But the hot take there is Ole Miss is maybe the worst defense they played in this stretch. This little stretch. Well, I guess outside of Mississippi State. Going back, Alabama, Texas.
Ole Miss's defense has great individual players. I don't think cohesively as a unit they're dominant.
Yeah,
I think they have the best pass rush in college football.
Yeah, they've been dominant recently.
18
what we talked about, Ralph, it was
games.
like 18 sacks the past 2 games for them.
I don't care who you're playing. That's 18 sacks in 2 games. That's impressive enough.
Yeah, I guess hot take. I don't know what I'm talking about.
It's not a hot take. You're not. But you're not wrong. It's like Trey Amos is playing really well for them, but the other secondary players are not playing as well.
Right. Yeah. I really was thinking
okay year.
They've got a great front seven.
I was really thinking about their secondary. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. Trey Amos is really good. That's probably the best spotlight on defense and secondary. But that front seven to me is just, if Walter Nolan plays on Saturday, I don't think they've come out with what his injury was, because he didn't play the rest of the game. He got hurt against Arkansas, which didn't really matter when you beat the absolute crap out of someone like that. This is true. I mean, it's what happened with but you're not wrong, because that's probably going to be the worst defense they face besides UMass the rest of the year.
Yeah. Tyson
no offense to the Minutemen. They don't have the players.
Yeah, I mean,
all right, Clayton.
We'll talk more about this game on Wednesday. Obviously, a great doubleheader in the SEC. I think with Carson Beck, you just the kid's talented. Like you can't just say, well, he's not good anymore, because you don't lose the talent that you have. It's whether you can harness it mentally and you can harness it physically to be able to go out there and perform each and every single week. And I think we've come up with this standard of great quarterback play that's borderline elite. And if anyone's below elite, they're not good. I think of like a guy that I covered last year in Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels had to be elite for that LSU team to even get to 9 wins. He played so consistent. That's why he won the Heisman Trophy. And in fairness, a lot of people, including Will, myself, I think all of us said it wouldn't surprise us if we saw Carson Beck in New York, and he hasn't played consistently enough to be in that conversation. So it's fair to say he's not that. That doesn't mean he's bad. This is still, I mean, I think he's still a top 15 quarterback in the country. Like I don't think he's fallen out of that list for me.
I saw a list today of the potential NFL draft picks, and it had all the quarterbacks this year. And obviously, Shadur Sanders is 1. They had Cam Ward 2, Quinn Ewers 3, and Beck was 4.
I'd take Beck over Ewers. Be honest with you, I might take Beck over.
Just because of pure pro potential. Yeah, it's all. And then your boy was at 5. On Nuss
my boy.
Yeah, your boy.
Nuss Bus.
Yeah, on Nuss Bus.
I think with Carson Beck, it's a combination of all those things we talked about. And then, he lost 2 first-round receivers, and you look at their pass catchers, they don't have a round 1 or probably even round 2 guy.
Well, he also had 2 guys get ejected off the team over here.
Yeah, that too. But
yeah.
So I think Carson Beck's trying to do a little too much because of that to make up for that. But the concerning part is it's still happening through 8 games. I think that's the only thing you're concerned about.
Well, and to your point, Will, I mean, you just mentioned that we talked about like, okay, it's going to work itself out. Well, what if it doesn't? If it doesn't, then I think Georgia loses one of Ole Miss or Tennessee, and you're not in the playoff. Like that to me, that to me was where you could sit, and you're maybe a fringe playoff team or not even in it. So it could go either way. I mean, it's very much a roller coaster, I think. But I think this is mental. Like physically, he's still the same guy that he was coming out as one of the higher rated quarterbacks in his class. I think he was a high 4-star. Like kid's still a really good player. He just sometimes guys have nightmare stretches, and I think he's learning to grow. And you mentioned, Will, like wrote in a column today. I mean, it is very weird Garrett Nussmeier is almost in the same boat of this in Centuries. They're trying to play outside of themselves. There's little to no run game. I mean, ETN's good. Like ETN's a very good back, but they're not consistently running the ball. So then your quarterback goes into hero mode. And I think that's what he's trying to do. So it's
go ahead and timestamp it 23 minutes. Maybe sometimes quarterbacks have a nightmare 20 game stretch. Sometimes that happens.
A nightmare 2-season stretch.
Sometimes maybe people are just not good, and we have to be honest about it.
They also have a nightmare stretch where we don't run the running back in the second half.
maybe sometimes quarterbacks have these nightmare stretches that are called careers, and we just figure out they're not very good.
And sometimes they just keep
And
running it out
sometimes-
there week in, week out. Let them play.
Sometimes people knew that. Sometimes people knew that before he even stepped on the field. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a legitimate question.